We're willing to do the work, and then that's really where the huge opportunity lies. The ability to force appreciation in real estate is really how you make a lot of great returns.
Welcome to the Freedom Point Real Estate Podcast, where we talk about creating more time freedom through passive real estate investing. Passive investing in real estate challenges conventional investment wisdom. We are passionate about learning and sharing resources with others who are ready to transform their investing mindset. Quick disclaimer as always, I am not a CPA, I am not an attorney or a financial advisor. This is not financial advice, not telling you or anyone else what to do. The views and opinions expressed in these podcasts are provided for education and informational purposes only and are not necessarily the views of my employer, ADP. I'm glad you're here. Now let's dig in. All right, welcome back, Freedom Point podcast listeners. Thanks again for jumping into another episode of the Freedom Point. We really appreciate those that continue to follow us regularly. We also appreciate those that have been regularly jumping in and doing what we call the podcast binge. So we appreciate you listening, to all of our prior episodes. If you happen to be new to the show, always trying to look to provide tremendous value to our listening audience, and I don't intend in not doing that today. So I have a wonderful guest lined up for us today, Savannah Arroyo. Welcome to the show.
Hi, yeah, I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you again for jumping in. Really appreciate you spending time with our listening audience today. For those that don't know Savannah is the founder of Networth Nurse and her newest fintech startup, InvestHealth. Through that company, Savannah started her real estate investing career at the beginning of 2020, shortly after she had her second daughter. So many people on the show have kids. A lot of us have young children. And oftentimes when that happens, that means that we need to pivot in terms of maybe what our professional journey is or looks like. And it sounds to me like you've done that.
Yeah, yep, definitely.
Well, good. Well, why don't you, if you wouldn't mind, if you can help unpack a little bit more about Savannah, what you're currently up to, what you're currently focused on, that would be great.
Yeah, definitely. So, a little bit of background on myself. I'm a registered nurse. I've been a nurse almost 10 years. Really went out of high school pursuing a nursing degree. Absolutely love the profession, still do. Very compassionate, love caring for people when they're sick and vulnerable, have a lot of empathy as well. And so, really early on to my nursing career, I started taking on process improvement projects, different leadership type roles. And so I went back to school pretty early on and ended up getting my master's degree in nursing leadership and administration, and had my eyes set on becoming a CNO, a chief nursing officer of a large healthcare organization. Because although I loved patient care, I loved supporting my nurses even more. I loved looking for different ways that I could contribute to process improvement or just overall give nursing staff what they needed to do their job. And so really started to climb the corporate ladder within a large healthcare organization down in Los Angeles, California. And it was at the beginning of 2020, after having my second daughter, that a lot of my priorities started to change. My husband and I were looking at our lives. We were both working Monday through Friday, very demanding jobs. When our kids were sick, it was always pointing fingers at each other who's going to be calling off and staying home with the kids. And it created a lot of stress in our lives. And we didn't want to be living like that. It was really eye-opening for us to see how dependent we were on our W-2. If I didn't go back to work when both my babies were 3 months old, I didn't have a choice. I had to go back to work to get that paycheck. So we've become super focused on investing and growing our wealth and generating multiple streams of income in our lives so that we're not as dependent on that W-2, and stumbled upon real estate for obvious reasons. It's one of the best ways out there to grow wealth. And really over the last 3 years, we've gone all in on real estate investing. And right now we primarily do real estate syndication. So we partner with other healthcare professionals to go out and buy apartment complexes, and we flip them in about a 5-year period.
That's great. So talk to me a little bit more about this idea of having multiple streams of income. Many that listen to this show, if they've not previously invested into real estate before, their primary source of income is the one that they currently have with their current employer. And if there's a life change in their lives, whether they perhaps lose their job or maybe there's a health emergency that they have. Maybe somebody in the family gets sick, those types of things. Why is looking for multiple streams of income such an advantage, for people versus those that just rely on that single source of income through their active day job?
Yeah, I mean, it just gives you the opportunity. It gives you different options. And that's really what we were looking for, to generate different streams of income coming in. So that maybe, I mean, for healthcare professionals too, in general, you have the mindset of the only way to generate additional income is to sacrifice your mental and physical health to pick up extra shifts at the hospital. I mean, that's very predominant in the healthcare industry of healthcare professionals thinking that's the only way to build wealth. But when you start looking at different investments, real estate being a great one, there's ways that you can take money in your life and put it towards these investments so that now it's making money for you. You're putting this money to work for you so that now it's working as hard as you are. It's making money while you're at the hospital or even while you're sleeping. And once we started learning different ways to do that, that's when we started tapping into all different capital sources in our life to go kind of all in on real estate.
Yeah, that's great. And it's great that you've got that background in nursing and can really, speak to other nurses that are currently still in, their active day jobs and really encourage and partner with them and come alongside them to teach them really or educate them about the benefits of passive real estate investing. So, Savannah, are you looking to partner with other potential investors on opportunities that you are personally acquiring, or are you partnering with other sponsors that are in the space today that maybe have a proven track record?
Yeah, so my husband and I, we do our own deals. So, beginning of 2020, kind of coming into the space new, we invested heavily in a coaching program. So, we spent $30,000 on a coaching program to teach us how to do real estate syndications. That was more than my master's degree. But for us, I mean, that was something we threw on a credit card. I mean, we didn't have the money for that, but we were all in. I mean, for real estate investing, when you learn how the numbers work, it's an aha moment. There, a light bulb goes off. I mean, there's so much risk that you can mitigate in real estate investing through proper market research, by really evaluating a building and what the P&L looks like for the last T12 trailing 12 months or even years back, and see what value you can add to the deal as an investor, what control you can have over the investment. And for us, it was a big mindset shift of, I mean, since I started as a nurse when I was like 23, I was putting 15 to 20% of my paycheck towards my retirement account. A big chunk. I would say, financially responsible even then, by doing that. And that was something that people congratulated me on. They were like, "You're doing the right thing." But to me, it just felt so discouraging to be putting this much money towards my retirement account every month, but I couldn't touch it until I was 59 and a half. I'm like, how much freedom is this really going to give over my life? Like, it just didn't really make sense to me. And now, where we invest in real estate, this is money that's generating cash flow. So that's money that's coming back into our bank account every month that we now have a lot more ownership and flexibility and overall control over.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring that up because I know a lot of investors, when we, and you, I'm sure, educate them on the benefits of passive real estate investing, don't realize that there is an option for, many people to unlock those retirement accounts and to invest, passively through a self-directed IRA strategy. So appreciate you bringing that up to me. So one other question that I have then for you, Savannah, is why multifamily? Why not single family?
Yeah, so we got started in single family homes. We actually bought two long term rentals across the country in Atlanta, Georgia when we first got started off. And they were build to rent projects, so very easy for us. The builders put tenants in place and pretty much managed it for us. And they were cash flowing a couple $100 a month. But it was that first tenant at 6 months leaving and us needing to spend $4,000 to repaint the entire house, that it completely depleted our cash flow budget. I mean, all the income that we were making from that building was gone. And then that's really when we started learning about multifamily and the ability to invest in multiples. There's a lot more control that you can have in terms of forcing returns and then mitigating even more risk in these large multiples. So um, even in the COVID pandemic, multifamily was one of the first asset classes to bounce back. In the 2008 housing crash, multifamily stayed very resilient. I mean, overall, just in the country, there's a national housing shortage. So there's just not enough places for people to live. And for us, we're investing in cities where there's below 40% home ownership, meaning that the majority of the people that are living in these cities, they rent. They need a place to rent. And so multifamily is just really resilient.
Yeah. And what particular types of assets and locations are you primarily looking to invest into? Are these typically B class neighborhoods, workforce housing? Is the strategy, mostly a value add, strategy? Which particular locations do you guys tend to gravitate towards?
Yeah, so definitely value add. I would say even B, C class are some of our buildings, but they generate strong, strong cash flow and there's huge opportunity. So we're looking for mismanaged buildings. I mean, buildings that have been owned in families for generations and maybe they're sitting on the back burner. You have owners who aren't taking care of renovations and repairs. They're letting a lot of different things go to the wayside. They're not even increasing rents. And so there's a lot of opportunity for investors like us to come in and see the opportunity here. And what may be scary to the owner of replacing roofs and windows, I mean, we're all for it. Let's do it. We jump in, we're willing to do the work. And then that's really where the huge opportunity lies. The ability to force appreciation in real estate is really how, I mean, you make a lot of great returns. And multifamily, it functions differently than single family, whereas single family, the value of your home is largely dependent on the value of your neighbor's home. So that's just how market comps work in single family. Whereas multifamily, the value of your building is based on how much income it's generating. So you, as the owner, have a lot more control to force the value of your overall building by going in there and increasing income by, I mean, some of the buildings that we take over, the rents are 29% below market. I mean, just way below market value. And so we go in, we take care of the repairs and renovations, and in turn, it allows us to raise the rents. There's opportunities for us to decrease expenses, and overall, you can force a lot of returns.
Yeah, that's great. What since you and I know a little bit about this space, or maybe a lot of people that we know think we know a lot about it. Okay, so what are some of the questions that you think that passive investors really should be asking people like you and me about the investment opportunities that we're bringing them that most investors don't typically ask us?
I would say track record for sure. Like what do some of your other buildings look like? How are they performing? Financing is huge, and that's really coming to light right now in the multifamily space where interest rates are sky high, and some investors secured variable interest rates, meaning non-fixed interest rates. So a couple of years ago they could have been paying 4.5% and now 8% or 7.5. I mean, that completely depletes your cash flow. So that is a lot riskier. And that's where you hear some of these multifamily buildings that are doing capital calls from their investors and they're really at a loss. And so financing is really big for us. We're very transparent with all of our numbers. So every quarter we give full financials to our investors, so full access to P&L. They can look at our transactions and see exactly where the money is going and coming in on our buildings every quarter. So super transparent there. And then also something I always offer up to my investors is if they'd like to chat with one of my other investors in the deal, just because I have a lot of nurses and healthcare professionals, doctors, they're a little weary of investments. Unfortunately, they get preyed on by a lot of financial institutions because because they're high income earners. And so they're a little bit skeptical of different investments in the financial market. And so I always offer my investors to chat with one of my other investors just to get an inside feel as to our communication style and what they like and dislike. And then also a investor portal is huge because on there is really where a lot of the communication lives. That's where your investments are, and we use an amazing portal that has a lot of different capabilities in terms of reporting that it can provide investors, and different tools like that.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. As you were answering that question that I had for you, I came up with four T's. Okay, the four T's are track record, transparency, testimonials, and technology. So all great areas to unpack. As a passive investor, before you decide to take that leap or send in that wire transfer for that particular investment that you're evaluating. So do you typically prefer investment opportunities that have maybe a 3 to 5 year hold, or are you looking for, multifamily apartments that are typically a 5 year plus hold?
Yeah, ours are anywhere between 5 and 7 year hold. Our storage facility is like a 10 year hold, but most of ours are a quick turnaround time, and quick is 5 years in real estate because that's kind of how long it takes to completely turn one of these apartment buildings and flip it. But yeah, we aim for 100% ROI for our investors. So if our investors are putting 50K, we look to get them that 50K plus another 50K on top of that, with an average annualized return anywhere between 15 to 20%. And that's the number that you'd want to compare to the stock market, which historically has done anywhere between 6 to 8%. So another great way to diversify and grow your wealth at a way better rate. And then our cash on cash returns anywhere between 7 and 10% for our investors. And those are really the average returns that we're looking at in our deals.
That's great. What kind of challenges maybe have you guys encountered along the way, or what are some challenges that you're facing today? What are the headwinds?
Yeah, that is a great question. And I would love to even add that on to what a potential passive investor, if they're looking to vet with an operator, to ask them, like, what hardships have you gone over? Like, what name something that's gone wrong in your property and tell me how you overcame it. Because if they have nothing to share, I mean, that's a red flag right there. I mean, things go wrong at these properties all the time. I can't tell you how many different closings where things would come up days before closing that we're trying to problem solve. I mean, it's just a part of the business. But yeah, for us, I would say, I mean, really the first deal that we did, unfortunately, it was a 12 unit up in Oregon, and we were told by the broker that we could turn in one of the old storage spaces into a studio unit. And anytime that you can add an additional unit to a complex, it really skyrockets that NOI, that net operating income. You can just add a lot of value by doing that. And so we were all in on it. And we hired engineers and contractors, and we were vetting out the business plan, and they were drawing out sketches for us. And we felt like we were doing everything in our power to prevent anything wrong from happening. And we went to close on the deal, and then our engineer went to pull permits from the city, and we were told we couldn't do another unit. And it was just, I mean, I still remember where I was in the hospital when I got that email, and it was just like heart dropped to my stomach. I had my father-in-law in this deal, a nurse I worked with. Like, I just couldn't believe it. I felt like, did we not do everything right? Like, we have a coaching program that we're paying for. Like, how did this happen? But I think, like, why I love working with my husband so much is that we just very much have a mentality of when something goes wrong, it's not dwelling on it and the blame game. It's kind of like, what do we do next? How do we overcome? And so for us, it always just forces us to get really creative and strategize. And with that specific building, we were in a position where we could renovate the storage facilities to make it stand out a little bit better. Now increase the rents on those. So we rented 7 of them out for $70 a month, making $490 a month. And we were anticipating putting in about 20 to 30,000 to renovate that studio unit. So all in, we ended up coming out better in the end. But stuff like that happens all the time in these deals.
Yeah, and I appreciate you saying that and being very transparent about that because, the reality is everybody's got, some warts. Everybody's got, some bumps, some challenges they've gone through. And I've reminded my listening audience before that in real estate, stuff is always going wrong. Okay. I've used that analogy that birds fly, fish swim, and real estate just always has a tendency to fall apart. There's thousands of different things that could go on any given day at any different property, right? And that's why, when you choose to invest, you're choosing to invest your money with the sponsor, right? People use the jockey on the horse or the pilot flying the plane, right? That's really, who you're trusting your hard earned money with is the ability for that sponsor to execute that value add business plan and to deal with the daily things that are going to come up and issues that they're going to have to overcome. And that's obviously why track record is tremendously important, as well as the team, that operator is surrounded by.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's why I am able to build so much trust with the healthcare community is because I was a nurse manager overseeing many different departments within a hospital and things go wrong all the time. I mean, surgeries fall through. I mean, things happen in the OR table. You get emergency calls come in. I mean, staff, physicians, there's so many burning fires going on at once and it's just kind of going to each one as needed. And so very applicable, and a lot of my skill sets did transfer over even to the real estate space.
Savannah, if you could go back and give your 18-year-old self one piece of advice, what would that be?
Ooh, take action. I think there's so much information out there for everyone, and a lot of people can get stuck in analysis paralysis. And I think those that continue to take action are the ones that are doing the best.
Yeah, that's right. The information's all out there for people. And I tell this to people all the time. It sounds to me like you spent money on a coaching program, people spend money on masterclass programs. I think that's a good strategy if you need some level or layer of accountability. But the reality is the information's all out there, right? It's for free on podcasts. You can buy inexpensive books, but it all comes down to, this concept of eventually you've got to take action. And sometimes those action steps aren't going to lead to what maybe you thought they were, but they're going to be a learning experience, right? And that's why what the key is in taking action is we're learning through, making mistakes. Obviously, we need to make calculated mistakes, and that's why I'm a big, fan and proponent of if people are going to invest passively into real estate, do it with the team that has that track record. Do it with the team that has, gone through those times of adversity. But at the end of the day, in order to get to where you want to go, you eventually have to overcome this paralysis by analysis and actually take action steps. So I saw your daughter walk in. Have her walk in and say hi. What's her name?
Oh my gosh, her name's Eliana. Let's see. I don't know. She probably ran away now. Yeah, she knows. She's like, uh-oh.
So for those that are just listening to this, Savannah's daughter just walked in, so I had a chance to meet her for a brief second there. So all good. And many people listening to this know that I homeschool my children. There's four of them in the house, so at any given time you could see a kid, run left to right, right to left through the screen. So love that. And speaking of children and maybe kind of where you've gone in your personal and professional journey, how have your own personal priorities changed, now that you're older, now that you have children in the house, right? I know for me, my priorities changed a lot, and they continue to change, now that I've got teenagers and, kids that are about ready to, graduate high school, so how have your personal priorities changed as you've gotten older?
Yeah, I mean, definitely after I had kids, I realized the importance of self-care because you can't pour from an empty cup. And there was a lot of habits in my life that I didn't even realize were not like suitable for growing and raising a family. So I mean, even little things like I stopped drinking alcohol 3 years ago. That's something I just left behind in my 20s. I have a daily meditation practice now. I am very aware of what I'm eating and consuming, the type of foods and that type of stuff. I mean, physical activity, I have a very strong yoga practice that I lean into. Even mentally too, I'm very aware of what type of information I'm consuming. So we don't have a lot of TV on, definitely no news, no media at all in my house ever. Even if sports is on with my husband's a sports junkie. So even if that's on, it's very low volume. So just different things like that I've been very hyper aware of, especially after having kids.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. What is one favorite book or podcast that you would recommend to the listening audience?
Ooh, book right now, I'm going to say Think and Grow Rich. That's just one of my all-time favorites and something that I pick up and open up and just read chapters from very regularly just to flip my mind in the right way.
Yeah, that's a great book recommendation. I've personally read that, and my 16-year-old just read that a month ago as well.
Ooh,
So,
love it.
what's the next bucket list item on your list that you'd like to check off?
Oh, bucket list item. I'm really wanting to go to Europe and explore Rome and like the Colosseums. My husband and I are doing a lot of like history stuff from the Rome Greek days and just learning about all that. I just want to go over there and soak it all up.
That's great, Savannah. I really appreciate you joining us on the show today.
Awesome. No, thank you for having me. I love connecting with anyone out there interested in real estate investing. So, if anything I've said is remotely interesting, please reach out. I'd love to chat.
In that breath, what are one or two ways that our listening audience can connect with you to learn more?
Yeah, social media is my favorite. So, the Net Worth Nurse under all social media handles. That's Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and yes, I'm on TikTok. I'm pretty heavy on there. I love showing people kind of an inside look into my life as a mom, as a nurse, as a real estate investor. I love chatting real estate. So, yeah, connect.
That's great. Well, we'll include those links into our show notes. So, again, I appreciate your time today, Savannah. And for the rest of the listening audience, thank you again for jumping into another episode of the Freedom Point Real Estate Podcast. And look forward to having you join us on the next episode.
Thank you for hanging out with us today and for listening to the Freedom Point podcast, powered by Starting Point Capital. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Nothing said on this show should be considered financial advice. Before making any financial decision, please consult with a professional. This show is copyrighted by the Freedom Point podcast. Written permissions must be granted before syndication or rebroadcasting. If you're interested in connecting, you can find contact information at startingpointcapital.com.